The floor over here to Bruce Steubing. He's a principal at a company which is called
Benchmark Resources.
Benchmark Resources, and he's going to tell you all about it. So thank you for being here, Bruce.
Just as a word of background, thank you, Matt, or Mr. Dudman. So I've known this young man over here since 7th grade. So we actually went to junior high school together and then went to high school. Then he went to UC Davis, and I went to junior college for a couple of years, and then went to UC Santa Barbara. And then while he was finishing up at Davis, I went to UC Santa Barbara undergrad, and then I went back east after walking on the beach in Santa Barbara and getting tar on my feet. I decided I'd go to the best environmental law school in the nation and went to Vermont Law School back east. And so I met my now wife back there going to law school. And so I graduated with an emphasis in environmental law. And so for the first couple years out of law school, I did practice law. I first practiced with a small land use firm, getting different developers permission at local governments to develop their projects. And then I left there after a couple of years and worked with a big law firm in Sacramento called Downey Brand. And I worked for an attorney that practiced mining projects. So I got an expertise in mining law and a lot of natural resource issues associated with mining law. Then in 2000, I decided to change careers and started working as a consultant, primarily working on mining projects. And so what we do in the consulting industry is I still was able to use a lot of the skills that I learned in law school. I think one of the things that I learned most during law school was analytical skills and writing skills and also oratory skills. And so in my practice as a consultant, I've actually been able to use a lot of those skills. So even though I'm not practicing law, I'm utilizing a lot of the skills that I learned in law school.
Which is why you're here.
Indeed. And the other thing that I've been able to do is I'm still a member of the California Bar Association, so I still do continuing education, still keep abreast of all the legal developments, primarily in the environmental and mining field. So what we do is do a lot of compliance work with a lot of environmental regulations. So does anyone here know what the California Environmental Quality Act is? We have a maybe. Anyone else? You want to tell me what you think the Environmental Quality Act is?
It has something to do with protecting the natural resources, such as the air, water, not dumping hazardous waste in the ground.
Yeah, that's part of it. Do you have any amplification on that?
And it also it regulates everything. So I think Alicia said it does regulate all the different aspects of the environment, but it also gives companies like rules on what they can do. Like I know within it there's other laws that correlate to it that prevent companies from doing certain things, and it varies from state to state.
Yeah. So yeah, there are probably about a half dozen to a dozen different environmental quality acts state to state. At the national level, it's called the National Environmental Policy Act, and at the state, it's called the California Environmental Quality Act. So I've got a couple of examples of these documents that I wrote. So I'll just have one per row, just so you guys can pass it along. So what it is essentially in California, if there's a agency that wants to do something like build a building or develop a park, they have to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, which, as you were saying, it makes them make sure that they look at all the environmental issues that this might cause. So if there's like air quality, aesthetics, like visual impacts, cultural resources, like geology, biology, hydrology, so a lot of those technical issues. And so what I've done is crafted these documents to help the agencies make sure that they look at the environmental laws and look at those issues, and then also to the extent that there's ways to mitigate for those, they have to come up with mitigation measures to help to reduce those environmental impacts. And one of the things that my law degree helped me do is not only write these sections, but we also have to make oral presentations in front of planning commissions and boards of supervisors. And so having that ability to organize my thoughts, be able to write clearly, and to discuss issues in the public, I think really sort of benefited me from having that legal background. So the other thing we do is most of our clients are either mining companies. So you'll see in most of those there's one that has to do with a pipeline, but there's two of those environmental documents have to do with mining projects. So a lot of my clients are either mining companies, mostly aggregate mining, but sometimes precious metal mining, and then also they're also lead agencies like counties and cities that regulate mining. And so a lot of what I do is I am like the staff member for different counties, like Alameda County is one of my clients, Contra Costa County is one of my clients, and I help them write staff reports if they have compliance issues, if the mining company is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, write notices of violation, and sort of work with the regulated community and the regulators to and make sure that they're complying with all the statutes and regulations. So what I've really appreciated about my law experience in a non-traditional way is that it did give me a lot of those baseline skills, but by doing something outside the law, it's not as much adversarial. A lot of them, you're working with agencies, working with the public to address their concerns. So you still utilize those persuasive skills and those argumentative skills, but you're doing it in a more constructive, cooperative fashion. So that's primarily what I've been doing since 2000. So from 2000 to 2010, maybe before some of you were born, but I worked for a consulting company. Then in 2010, me and one of my bosses fired my other boss and started our own business. So I've been a business owner since 2010, and my office is up in Folsom, so it's a nice commute. It's a nice area to live in. So that's sort of how I've utilized my law degree, and so I have 9 employees and 1 part-time employee, so 9.5. But she's a full person, but she works half time. And it's been a really rewarding experience doing something other than the law. I did practice law for 5 years, but I had to wear a suit every day. I had to sort of be a suit and tie, so it just wasn't my vibe. I'm just a little bit more casual, and so as Matt would attest, we have that kind of attitude. So that's my background, and that's sort of what I've done. At this point, I'd just like to open it up for any questions that you guys might have about sort of a non-traditional career after obtaining a law degree.
I can start off.
Sure.
You have there's how many people work there? 11, you said?
11 including myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you and how many people are running the company?
So it's me and 2 partners.
Okay, 2
Yeah.
partners. And do they have law degrees?
One of them does actually.
Uh-huh.
So probably about 15 years ago, I don't know if you guys know where McGeorge Law School is. It's in Sacramento. So our office, at that time it was in El Dorado Hills, but I convinced my partner, who is a geologist, I said, you know what, I think we should go to McGeorge and see if we can find someone that might want to work for us. So I took some of those environmental impact reports during a job fair, put them on the table, and just sat there. And this guy came up to me. He's about 12 years younger than me. Said, "Hey, what do you do?" He was a 3rd year at McGeorge, and he had worked with the resource agency doing Environmental Quality Act work. And I said, here's what I did. I explained it to him. He ended up working with us and never actually practiced law outside, but he still got past the bar and still did that. So he and I, even though we're both still members of the bar, in fact, next week we're going to San Francisco to do a 2-day class to keep up with all our environmental law issues. But yeah, so there's one other attorney, and the rest of the people don't hold it against me that I have a law degree. So, but yeah, that's a good question.
I assume, on the contrary, that you are providing some skills that they don't have. It's some kind of a yin and yang thing.
Yeah, I think it's been I like the way you said that, because I wasn't really, even though I did environmental law, I really didn't know much about hydrology issues or geology issues or biological issues. So what's been really rewarding over the last couple of decades is I've been able to teach them about the different, like, in compliance with Endangered Species Act, Clean Water Act, and California Environmental Quality Act, and sort of help them, and also help them write, because I think one of the things you get in law school that can apply to anything is your ability to write in persuasive and effective manner. So, but I've also learned a lot about those resources that I wouldn't if I was just pigeonholed in a room practicing law.
So, okay, so you have a law degree. You said you're maintaining your license, so
Yeah.
you are a practicing attorney.
I could practice. I don't have insurance, so
Okay.
and the other thing that I've been careful with, because I did practice law and I still have good relationships with some of the attorneys I work. So when they need a consultant to help them on a project, they work with me, and when I need an attorney, I work with them. So I don't try to compete with them, because if I did still practice law, I think a couple of the people that I get referrals from would say, I'd rather not give my work to a competitor. So.
Okay, so we know that you have the training, the legal training that you have, you're putting to work currently.
Yes.
But why pay the yearly fee and do all the compliance to keep up the license?
Well, I think part of it is just having an option that if I decide maybe when the business winds down, if I want to practice law, I still have that opportunity. The other thing is by attending these classes, like this next week we're in San Francisco, it allows me to network with other consultants and other attorneys, because at this conference I'm going to next week, about half of the people are planners, about half of the people are attorneys, and of some of those planners, they're lead agencies that I do a lot of work for, so I can network and kind of coordinate that way too. So I think it's helped me build my business as well.
Okay. And then my last question for now, at least.
Okay.
You went over this, but it might have gone past us kind of quickly. So what services does your company provide?
Yeah, so thank you for asking. So not only do we help write those technical reports where we help agencies comply with the California Environmental Quality Act, the other thing we do is, because we do a lot of mining work, we help mining companies figure out how they can fix their mines once they're done. They're called reclamation plans. So in 1975, there was a statute passed called the Surface Mining and Reclamation Act. And in that required that for all above ground mines, that once you're done mining, you have to have a bond in place that assures that you're not going to F up the environment, and that if you do adverse impacts, you're going to have to remediate them or reclaim them. So here's an example, if you want to just take that and maybe pass it around, where we actually help mining companies come up with these detailed reclamation plans that shows what's out there now, what sort of species are out there, what sort of hydrology and drainage issues are out there now. And then in addition to that, then what sort of impacts are you going to have, which those environmental documents evaluate. But this basically has sort of a plan, it's called a reclamation plan, of how they're going to repair and reclaim the environment. The other thing we do is, under that Surface Mining and Reclamation Act, each mine has to be inspected by whatever agency they're in every year to ensure that they're complying with those plans. In addition, they have to make sure that they have that financial mechanism in place, that if they were to go off to Mexico or decide to leave, there's some mechanism in place that the agency then can take that project over and reclaim that site. So we actually hired a mine engineer about 10 years ago. So he goes around to all these different sites. We have San Benito County, Alameda County, Imperial County, so we're all over the state, and he goes and inspects all these mines and looks at their financial assurances to make sure they're adequate and they're not trying to pull one over on the agencies. And for the most part, most of the issues are pretty resolved at the review level, where we'll say, hey, you need to fix this, and they do. You need to increase this amount. You have to set aside a certain amount of money to do revegetation and reclaiming these areas, putting the slopes back to where they're supposed to be, so they're stable, so they don't adversely impact either whatever wildlife's on the site, or if it's in a more urban area that it can be reclaimed to a more suitable reclamation use.
Okay, so I'm a company that's a developer and I have some project that I want to develop the land into apartment complexes
Yeah.
or whatever. And I have to comply with CEQA.
Yeah.
And it's a big, crazy mess of laws that's too hard for
Yeah.
me to understand. So I hire you guys and you guys say, okay, well, here's what you're doing and here's what the law is and here's how you can do it in a way that complies.
Yes.
I mean, that's
And then work
totally
with-
oversimplifying, I'm
No,
sure.
but that's right. And the other thing we try to do, and we typically don't do development because we have this little mining niche. But with that example, is what we do is say, so what do you want to do? And so we get sort of what they want to do, and then we say, okay, well, because you're in this area that's zoned this way, you're going to have to ask for a rezone so you can do what you want to do, or you're going to have to adapt your project so that it's suitable for that area. So before we even tell you why, we work with you understanding those laws and regulations with how to best configure your project so then when you do actually file that application, then you sort of already try to think through those issues and try to address those and try to save you time and money on the back end by helping you sort of strategize things up front. And a lot of times we'll have them bring in a land use attorney or a mining attorney. Even though me and one of my partners have those capabilities, we don't want to tread on, as I mentioned earlier. So we'll work on it. Well, we think Pat would be good for this, or maybe Tom would be good for this. So we sort of figure out, based on the type of project, how we'd want to recommend, assembling a team. What sort of biologists do we want to use? There's red-legged frog here. This biologist is really good at that. Or if there's hydrology issues, that biological firm's good at dealing with those. Who through 25 years of professional experience, I've sort of figured out who I want to assemble my team to help problem solve and move a project forward.
So with two of you being attorneys and one not, I presume that the other person has some kind of an expertise, like technical engineering stuff or some.
Yeah, so he was a geologist undergrad and then a geographer. He got his master's at UC Riverside as a geographer with a biological emphasis. So, and he's the one that drives the binder, that reclamation plan. He's the one that sort of leads that effort. And so his specialty is understanding mining operations, understanding how to address those requirements. I do understand the mining laws, and I'm actually drafting a couple of mining ordinances for different counties across the state. But he's sort of the specialty in like reclamation planning and that kind of issue. So it is sort of this symbiotic relationship we have.
That's good for me for now, yeah.
Yeah.
So being in Folsom, have you done anything with the building of the south side of East Bidwell?
We actually, the funny thing is, the only project we had there was Tykert permitted a project about 12 years ago, and we did the environmental impact report, and that was already planned to be developed, so we actually had to look at the compatibility between that mine and those development. We haven't done any of the permitting or any of the compliance stuff. But yeah, it's crazy how much that's grown.
Is an environmental impact report, is that a phase one?
No, and that's an environmental assessment, so that's more dealing with hazardous issues. An environmental impact report deals with all those aesthetics, air quality. So it's more, the phase one's more of a regulatory compliance document. This is more of a disclosure. Hey, public, hey, decision makers, here are our impacts, here are how we're gonna fix them. Do you like us or not? Vote for us or don't, right? The interesting thing about the Environmental Quality Act, though, is even if there are environmental impacts that can't be mitigated, that are adverse to the environment, what a lead agency can do, usually a county, but sometimes a city, they can actually say, you know what, we want to approve it anyway. And so what they have to do is adopt what's called a statement of overriding considerations, where they say, we need jobs, we need business, there's other environmental benefits, and this is going to reduce transportation and GHG impacts. So those environmental impacts outweigh maybe biological impacts. So it's sort of an interesting document where it tells you what to do, but if you have the political wherewithal or the economic or environmental benefits of your project, they might even say, though we're going to find those acceptable, and here's why.
Do these companies have in-house lawyers that sometimes do this, corporate lawyers that do this, or do they have to be like a third party?
No, that's a good question. That's funny. I got an email this morning actually from Martin Marietta, which is a big international mining company. Their in-house attorney used to be working as a third-party attorney. He then went in-house because you get pretty good pay and not as crazy hours. So they do actually have, most of them use outside, but there are some in-house attorneys where we work with them because they still have the expertise, but they're just doing it in-house. So that's a good question. Yes.
I've kind of a two-part question. So like when you found yourself in the process of making your business, one is like, how much did it seem like a big risk to you, or by then did you already kind of understand what you were doing? And then two is like, what did the workload look like for you? Like,
Yeah, so for the first question, when I did decide to open the business, and the reason why I fired my boss is that he got us involved, like me and my partner that I'm still with, he and I made a lot of the money, and his other partner lost a lot of it. And so it's like, if I could stay there, I might be able to get a paycheck, but I'm never going to make anything. So I figured weighing that against the risk of most of the clients are going to come with me. I'm the one that's doing the good work. So it was a little bit of a risk, and we actually borrowed money from one of our employees to pay our first set of paychecks. But we had two big clients, and we said, hey, we're ditching this company. It's going to be the same people except for this loser. So come with us, and we want to pay net 1. And typically in business, you get paid between net 30. So when you invoice them, they usually pay you between 30 and 60 days. We told these two really clients that we did a lot of work for, we want you to pay us net 1. So they both agreed to do it because they appreciated our services so much. So it was a little bit risky. And then in terms of workload, and this is similar to being an attorney, is because you bail on an hourly rate, the harder you work, the more money you get paid. So when we were first starting it, we were grinding really hard and doing a lot of the work. And so I think it was worth it because it helped build that business up, and we were able to hire up. But yeah, the workload was pretty steep, especially those first couple of years. But it's fun work. I like it. I'm 57 right now, and like some people are going to say, when are you retiring? And I tell them, why? I love what I'm doing. I have the flexibility. I own my own business. What would I do? I'd play golf and get on my wife's nerves, right? But yeah, those are also good questions. Thank you. Yes.
Since you mentioned that, I want to get personal. Where do you play golf at?
Ansel Hoffman, which is right down the street, and then also Empire Ranch,
Okay.
which is in Folsom. I play there, and then one of the special places that we have is up at Sea Ranch, and they have this really cool like linksy style golf course up there. So whenever I get a chance, I play there too.
Just wondering if you ever played at Toronto.
No,
Okay.
that's too fancy for me. Although I have played Pebble a couple of times.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
I actually won one of them because I won the club. That was before my kids when I actually played a lot of golf. So I have a sophomore at University of Oregon and a junior in high school.
Okay, well, one sum up question, and you've already really answered this, but I just want to drill this home because that's the point of what we're talking about. So I'm a make-believe person that's in this class, and I'm thinking about learning about the law, whether that's going to law school or some other way. But I really don't want to practice law as an attorney, even though there's a lot of different options in that world. Is that a good idea? Should I do that, or?
Well, I think just thinking about it, because it is a financial investment. I went to Vermont Law School and I graduated in 1994, and I think I finished paying off my loans in 2014. And I borrowed $70,000, and by the time all the interest was accrued, I think I paid $120,000. Right, so it is a financial investment. But one of the other options would be, a lot of law schools have like graduate degrees. My wife actually did a graduate program just specializing in environmental law. So she didn't do just the 3-year environmental program, or the law program. She did it for 1.5 years. So it's basically all year and then the summer. And she ended up applying to law school, got in, and then she looked at me and goes, "We can't have 2 attorneys in this family, so I'm just gonna not do it." So she was an environmental consultant for a while. Now she is working as a technical editor for a journal specializing in environment and Asian economics. So the cool thing about that is we got to go to Tokyo a couple years ago. I was the end one and got to.
Does she regret having legal education?
No, I think it really helped her writing and her editing skills. So I think if you do decide to practice law, even if you don't, go to law school, even if you don't, it's very beneficial, provided that you have a idea of what you want to do and how you want to utilize that degree. But, you know, I practiced law for 5 years and I was fine, and I might do it again. Any other questions? All right. So
All right.
last time I was here, I had darker hair and a skinnier belly. And Matt actually gave me this nice gift. He gave me this maritime t-shirt. And I think I still might have it. I don't think my wife lets me wear it anymore, but I wear it for it. So I decided to return the favor and bring some tumblers. So we just had a mining conference down in Palm Springs. And so I thought I'd bring him and his staff a tumbler. So it's got the topography sort of like from the mining projects and our name. And it really does a good job of containing both heat and ice. So feel free to come up here and get one of these. So how many people do I have? So 10 and 11. So there's 12 here. So maybe the nicest person that didn't show up, you can give them one too, man. But I think you have to make it through class. You have to go through class before you get one of these. Any other questions? Well, thank you for your good questions. That was,
All right, well, let's
yeah.
say thanks to Bruce for speaking.